The national championship game tips off tonight, and if we're being honest, Michigan looks completely unstoppable right now and the heavy favorite to win it all. They've scored 90 plus points in 5 straight tournament games, which is something we have never seen in March Madness before. So in this video, I'm breaking down exactly why UConn beating Michigan might not be as crazy, because when you really dig into it, there are some very real reasons the Huskies can pull this one off. But before we get further into it, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Kalshi for sponsoring today's video. And Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the US, and right now if you sign up for Kalshi and use code TBN, you can get $10 when you trade your first $10. And what makes Kalshi different is that you're trading against your peers rather than a sportsbook, and it's available in all 50 states. And if you're interested, make sure to go to the link to Kalshi in the description below and sign up with code TBN before the national championship game tips off. But now, let's get back into the video. And I wanted to start with Michigan because we need to understand just how dominant they've been. This isn't just a team winning a bunch of games in the tournament. They're absolutely overwhelming teams, and there's a real reason why they are the heavy favorites on Kalshi to win the national championship. And when you combine that with the advanced metrics, it definitely backs it up, because this is an elite offensive team by every measure, as they are in the top tier in adjusted offensive efficiency. They have incredible shot making, and they have the ability to score at all 3 levels. They can also beat you in transition, they can space you out and knock down threes, and they can physically dominate you at the rim. So there isn't an obvious weakness to this team. But here's where things start to shift a little bit, because while Michigan has looked unstoppable, they haven't faced a team quite like UConn yet, and that matters more than people realize, because UConn doesn't play the same style as the teams Michigan has been rolling through. They don't try to match you on the offensive end. They don't get into those shootouts. Instead, they completely change the game and make you play on their terms. And UConn wants to make things uncomfortable. They want to slow the pace, grind possessions, and force you into tough, contested shots late in the clock. And we just saw exactly what that looks like in their Final Four matchup against Illinois, because the Illini came into the game as one of the best offensive teams in the entire country, and UConn completely shut that down. Illinois shot just 34% from the field and scored only 62 points in the game, which is over 20 points less than their season average. And that wasn't an off night for Illinois, that was UConn dictating the terms of the game. And here's the part that should really catch your attention, because Michigan thrives when their game is up-tempo and fast-paced, and when they can move the ball freely, get into their actions, and play with rhythm, that's when the Wolverines become almost impossible to guard. But UConn is built to disrupt that rhythm, because they pressure off the ball, they contest everything, and they make you work for every single look that you get. And as Dan Hurley has emphasized, they want to force teams to move more defensively than they're comfortable with, and that doesn't just affect one possession. It's gonna build over the course of the game, and it can wear you down both physically and mentally. But the big question will be if UConn's defense can actually do that against a team this good for a full 40 minutes, because Michigan's offense isn't just good, it's historically good right now. But the one thing working in UConn's favor is that they've consistently proven they can drag elite offenses into uncomfortable games, as we saw against both Illinois and Duke so far in the tournament. And if they can do that again, suddenly this becomes a completely different matchup between the two. Now, I do have to talk about Michigan's size, because this is another major storyline from this game, because this isn't just a big team, it's a physically overwhelming team with Yaxel Lindenborg, Morez Johnson Jr., and Ade Mara there in the front court, and they finish everything at the rim, they rebound at an extremely high level, and they can turn games into what feels like a dunk contest at times. And at first glance, that's exactly the type of team that should dominate UConn, especially with UConn's only reliable front court player being Taurus Reed Jr. But if we look at the Huskies' NCAA tournament run so far, UConn isn't a team that gets intimidated by physicality. In fact, they embrace it. They've built their identity around toughness, discipline, and making games ugly, and that's a huge factor in this matchup, because if this turns into a fast-paced, high-scoring game, that clearly favors Michigan. But if UConn can slow things down, if they can control the tempo and turn this into a half-court battle where every possession matters, that's where things start to swing the the other way in my opinion. And we've already seen UConn thrive in chaos. Just look at that Duke game. UConn shoots 1 for 18 from 3. They fall behind by 19 points, and the game looks completely over at one point, and then somehow the Huskies find a way to win. And that just goes to show the resilience of this team and that they don't panic when things go wrong, and that's incredibly important in a national championship game. And here's the reality though, at some point, Michigan is going to face adversity in this game. Maybe their shots stop falling for a stretch, maybe UConn forces them into tougher possessions than they've seen all tournament long, or maybe the game is tight in the final minutes, and in those moments, we don't fully know how Michigan will respond, but with UConn, we've already seen it time and time again, and each and every time, they've come through. And that leads me into what might be the biggest advantage for UConn, and that has to be their experience, because this is a program that has been here before and recently. They've won 2 of the last 3 national championships, and Danny Hurley himself is undefeated in the Final Four. And when you have coaches and players, specifically Alex Caravan, who have been through these moments before, it changes how you handle the pressure, and that matters even more because of the format of the NCAA tournament, especially in the national championship, because this isn't a 7-game series where the better team usually wins out over time. This is one game consisting of 40 minutes, and that's it. And in that kind of environment, variance plays a huge role, and one run can decide the game. And I know I mentioned how good Michigan's offense is, especially in the tournament with scoring at least 90 points in every game so far, but UConn has only allowed 90 points twice all season long, and one of those games actually went into overtime, so something has to give, because either Michigan keeps playing at a historic offensive level, or UConn successfully drags them into a lower scoring, more controlled game. And if you had to bet on one of those things changing, history suggests it's more likely that the elite defense would disrupt the elite offense rather than the other way around. But at the end of the day, I think this entire game comes down to who can control the pace of the game, because Michigan wants to dominate from the start. They want to build a lead, play freely, and put pressure on you to keep up. And for UConn, they want the exact opposite of that. They want to fight, they want the game to stay within reach, and they want to turn it into a possession-by-possession battle where execution matters the most at the end of it. And if this game is close in the final few minutes, everything could change, because now it's not about who's been better over the course of the season, it's about who is able to execute in the game's biggest moments, and that's where UConn's experience and identity could become incredibly valuable for them. So yes, Michigan might be the better team on paper. They've had the more dominant run, and they deserve to be the favorite. And honestly, I'm even predicting that they are going to win. But UConn beating Michigan, that's not as crazy as you may think right now, because at the end of the day, this is March Madness. It's not about who's had the better season or who has the most talent. It's about who's better for one night. So let me know in the comments down below who you are picking to win the national championship. And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.